Hi, everyone, and welcome to this drop-in session to find out a bit more about the Hush the Noise Advent resource for children. This is a new resource that has been created and written, which connects with the rest of the Hush the Noise resource. So you can use it as part of your Christmas campaign in your church and in your communities. And it means that you can engage really well and really meaningfully with children in your local area. So I want to ask you, first of all, have a little discussion and reflection now about what plans do you have in place already for Christmas events and activities. So just going to send you off to have a quick conversation now. So I hope you've got to enjoy meeting with other people. Let me tell you a little bit more about the resource. So the resource is split into 3 sessions that follow the lectionary from the 1st of December. So for the 1st, the 8th and the 15th. And it's designed to be used with primary age children. So children who are in infant junior school, roughly from the ages of 5 to 11. And you can use it in a range of settings. It follows the tuning approach. And if you've been part of 3Generate with your children and young people, this might be familiar to you. And so it's also linked with a Methodist way of life. So both of those things are part of what this resource has been designed to support and encourage. So Advent 1, the first session content is based on the theme of Hush the Noise. The Methodist way of life area is pray. And then Advent 2, which is the theme of To Prophets Shown, follows the Methodist way of life theme of open. And then finally, Advent 3 is Babel Sounds, and the Methodist way of life area is challenge. So you can explore all those areas and all those things through the course of the 3 sessions if you choose to do it as a block, but you can also just pull out one session and just use that one if that's what's going to work for you. Now, there's also a symbol that you can use for each of the sessions. So week 1, you've got the roaring waves. Week 2 is a light bulb. And finally, week 3 is sellotape or glue. And there are some clues to that in the design of the material. Now, it's been written to be used as flexibly as possible because we know that children's ministry looks different in every church, in every community, in every circuit. So it's up to you to make it work for the children that you know and work with. So you might like to use it with groups that are already in existence, groups that you run perhaps midweek, maybe of a weekend, so you can use it with them. They might be children from your church congregation, or they might also be children who have no church background or experience, and it's perfectly fine to obviously use it with them as well. The sessions don't require any previous knowledge, but you may find that they prompt all kinds of awesome questions, and that's all part of the joy of exploring the theme of Christmas. So, what does each of the sessions look like? So let me just talk you through that. Sessions have 3 simple sections. The first one is all about tuning into God, the world, and each other, which is something that we're kind of familiar with doing now. The second section is what is God saying? And the third section is what next? So the intention there is that in the first section, we're looking at the Bible, we're reading the Bible, we're wondering about it, we're thinking what strikes us from what we're hearing. And then the second section is all about, okay, what is God saying to me through that? What might I be noticing? What am I kind of wondering about? What is God saying to me as a follower of Jesus? And then the third section is the place where we get to think about the what next. What might I feel called to do? What does God want me to do about this? What does God, or how does God want me to respond? And that's all about kind of the action that follows afterwards. So they translate into those kind of main 3 areas, which hopefully makes it nice and easy for you to kind of just run that session and it have a really good flow through it. Each session lasts around 45 minutes, but of course you can make it shorter if that works for you. So for instance, if you're running a lunchtime group in school, you might want to only run it for half an hour so you can condense it a bit, take some things out. And then you could also run it if, say, you've got 90 minutes with children and young people, you could give them more time to discuss things, more time to do the other activities, and build in perhaps some time to pray or sing or play games, depending on what the format of that session normally looks like. So what we'd encourage you to do is take what's in the material as the bones of your session, add to it, take stuff away, and build it in such a way that's going to work for your setting and church. Now, you could choose to run all 3 sessions as a one-off. If you're not doing any children's ministry, it's a great resource to perhaps start and try something, invite people in, get to know people where you are. You might want to bring in families and households and do the material with them, and it would work beautifully. So that might be one option. So you might want to use it as a pop-up Christmas activity for your community. You might like to use some of the material as part of a Christmas fair. If you're doing that, you could run maybe a room and invite kind of children to pop in, do some of the activities, kind of talk about some of the things as well. Or you might want to go and offer to take some of the materials, say, to a uniformed organisation that meets on your premises. You could offer to go and do half an hour, say, of a session before Christmas, and give all of those young people a chance to reflect a little bit on what we understand and believe is going on during Advent as we wait for Jesus to be born. The key is make it work for where you are. That's what's really important. So just bear in mind that there are all kinds of different ways in which you can use it flexibly. So let me show you what the resource looks like. Let me share my screen and I can show you. Here it is. It's found as part of all of the Hush the Noise resources. If you scroll down, you'll see it says Advent for Children. If you click on that, you'll get through to the PDF of the resource. There's also the option to choose the Welsh language resource. And then there is also each of the sessions which you can look at just on web pages, one at a time. So there's a little bit of background for you about how perhaps to use it. And here's what I was just talking about in terms of tune in to God, the world and each other. What is God saying? What's next? A really central part of what we do at 3Generate. So this is bringing 3Generate into your ministry all year round. And then we get to session 1, Hush the Noise, and there are a couple of Bible readings there. And then we have some ideas of how you might like to then kind of tune into the scripture and the Bible. And I'd recommend taking a look at the Dwell app because there are audio versions on there that you can listen to. It includes a child's voice reading the passages, which is wonderful. And you can ask children and young people perhaps to jot down phrases or words that stand out for them, kind of do a big doodle on the floor amongst you all. You've also got a YouTube clip that you can watch of the passage, and then something to kind of follow up on about doing a prayer doodle, which again uses a blank sheet of paper where you write the whole of one of the verses out on the sheet and then get people to come and draw or write around it. And as you're doing that, you're creating a beautiful prayer in response to those passages. And then we think about what is God saying. So we've got a lovely activity here where you can put children into small groups and they're asked to create a physical version of the roaring sea. So each person in the group has a different noise. You can have lots of fun making different noises here and then have a play with that. How do you kind of compose a roaring sea using all of those different sounds? You could also do that activity, but without any sounds. So maybe with actions, what moves can we create which look like the roaring sea? There's a suggestion of creating a poster. You can also then reflect a bit on what it's like to wait, which is something that we do during the Advent season. And then the final activity here is one about filling different bottles or tubes with rice, and you can use that to kind of create the sound of water and have all kinds of fun, just kind of playing with those, making a soundscape, perhaps one that's really noisy with the roaring waves, or one that's very quiet where the sea is calmer. So lots of great opportunities to play there. And then the final activity under What Next is really drawing our minds to the fact that Christmas and the run up to Christmas can be busy with nativities and school fairs and parties. And all of that can perhaps feel a little bit like noise at this time of year. There's so much going on. So actually, how can we all hush the noise? How do we not get swept up in the busyness of everything? And maybe children might like to think through how could the adults and the grown-ups in their lives help them to do that as well. So that's week 1. We get into week 2, which is all about to prophets shown, which reflects that we knew of Jesus' coming. As we look back at the Old Testament, we get to see that Jesus' coming was prophesied. And then this is talking to us really around how do we kind of hear the message? What is it like to hear that message today? So lots of these activities are about messages. There's an activity down here, which is kind of about creating a code, use an alphabet code. Take a line from the Malachi passage, turn it into your code, share it. Can other people decode what you've created? And then also there's a lovely activity about using emojis. So you might like to have some of those printed off that children could look at and then use the emojis to write a message. What does that message convey? And there are obviously so many different ones. We could use art materials to do that. We could draw it. They could do actions. Again, kind of depends on your children, how you might like to do that. And then we kind of talk a little bit at the end of this activity that sometimes being part of church means that there are funny names or words for things because of the tradition that we are a part of. And some people perhaps who aren't familiar with church or are new to church might not understand those things. So how could we make things simpler and less like that we have to know a special code to understand all of these things? And I'm sure children would come up with some great ideas of how to do that. And the final week's material is focused around the passage in Zephaniah and then the passage in Luke as well. And this is designed to be quite a challenging week, which is great that we've got the Methodist Way of Life practice of challenge there. So again, a couple of really great YouTube videos that you might want to watch with children and then get their thoughts on. And also a suggestion, maybe you could walk around the neighbourhood whilst you're listening or as you're reading this, perhaps with children as well. That could be lots of fun. And then there are different activities to respond to the aspect of what is God saying. So there's a suggestion that's been inspired by the Repair Shop and Sewing Bee to set a challenge to repurpose broken or torn items. Are there people in church who could help fix or mend things or transform it into making something new? If you've got lots of old clothes or old bedding, could we transform that into something like, say, some bunting that we can hang up in our church? How could we work together to make that? Or can we donate some good quality things that we no longer need that might be useful for other people? And then there's also a wrapping activity here. So at this point, just before Christmas, use that time to bring a present, to wrap it up. We might have all kinds of leftover wrapping paper, bows, bags, ribbons, etc. Ask everyone to donate them and then wrap up some presents and give some gifts, maybe to people who aren't going to have much this Christmas. And so just a reflection there also to be done about how might that help us kind of recycle and reuse things that's going to be for the benefit of the planet. And then finally, the what next idea is about a reverse Advent calendar. So can we think of some ideas or some things that we could do that where rather than getting a chocolate or being given a small gift, that actually we're going to do or give something that our community is going to appreciate, or somebody that we know is going to appreciate. And again, children will come up with some awesome ideas for this. And I'm sure you'll be able to easily find 24 ideas. I've suggested here that you could make some agents of change action cards and write those ideas on 24, and then everybody commits to go away perhaps and doing one in the run up to Christmas. So that's the resource. You've got those 3 weeks worth of material to use there. I'll stop sharing my screen. So time for you to have a little discussion with another person about bearing in mind your Christmas plans and what things look like for you in your church and community. How might you build that resource in? Take some time to reflect on that now and jot down some ideas. So thanks for sharing all those possibilities, and it's lovely to hear that you're kind of just got those ideas are sort of bubbling. That's really, really lovely. As we move towards the end of our drop-in time together, I have 5 tips for you, really about just top tips to get the most out of this resource. So the first one is just be really guided by the children that you know and are working with. Make this resource work, bearing them in mind. So keep them at the centre of your thoughts as you're planning. The second tip is about participation. So look for all of the potential that there is for children to participate. Can they lead aspects of the session themselves? Can they read it out for themselves? Could they record the passage perhaps with each other? And also kind of, are there ways in which the final section about what next, what ideas are coming to their mind? So rather than as leaders us suggesting or telling them what they might do, what ideas are they having? How do we support them to do the things that they want to do, which is a really important part of hearing the voice. Thirdly, make sure there is lots of time for conversation, because there is bound to be thoughts and ideas that bubble up that they're thinking about. So wonder about that together. And don't be afraid in the middle of it for there just to be some quiet or some silence as everybody's thinking. And also bear in mind that perhaps some children might be keener to share their thoughts and ideas than others, and some gentle encouragement might make those kind of quieter children feel more comfortable about being able to share their thoughts as well. So yeah, lots of time to chat is great. And then fourthly, build a resource into what you're already doing. You don't have to run this as an entirely separate thing. Use it for what you already do. It's designed for that. It's there for you to just take and apply to whatever you already do. And then fifthly, keep it fun. This is about Advent, it's about Christmas, there's excitement, we're waiting for Jesus to come, so let's enjoy that experience with one another. And if you sense that perhaps your children are starting to disengage or lose interest, move on, stop what you're doing, move on, do something else, maybe do something really active, and then come back and focus in again. So as I mentioned earlier, we had a little look when I shared my screen at the resource that you can download as a PDF. So you've got the whole resource, you can save that to refer to, but you can also look at each of the 3 sessions by looking on the web pages, and the links are there. I will put that onto the chat in a moment. So just some closing thoughts really, just for you before we all head off. Do take a look at the wider resource. So this is a kind of a sister resource to the worship resources. They link really well together. So you might be able to take some aspects of that, particularly if you're running junior church in the run up to Christmas, because you'll find songs and hymns and prayer ideas. There's also ideas to respond, some hands-on activities. So you could do something using some of that as well. So you've got plenty of things that you can take a look at. There's a really beautiful liturgy that you can use, an opening liturgy, which would work really, really nicely with children as well. And also just to encourage you to speak to your minister, others perhaps in your church, other leaders. If you're a volunteer, go and chat to maybe some other people who are all involved in your children's work. and just try to join some of these things up. So if you're doing things with the other ages and generations in your church, can you join this up and do some of it together? There are lots of possibilities for making that work really well. And also, if you go and look at the resources, there are social media resources that you can be using in the run up to Christmas as well, just to promote the Hush the Noise campaign, and particularly in your area, in your Facebook groups, perhaps for your children's work, be telling people about Hush the Noise and encouraging them to join in. I hope you found this afternoon helpful and useful, that there are some things that you can take away. And all I need to say is have a wonderful Christmas. Enjoy all the opportunities that we have to talk of good news at this time of year, and have just the best time celebrating that Jesus is with us. See you soon. Bye bye.